That's what I hate about you as a person. Aren't you embarrassed to say something like that about your own daughter?
Shut up. If you have any complaints, let's divorce. Leave.
I had reached my limit. I couldn't be with this man any longer. Fine, let's get divorced. My husband seemed like he was waiting for this moment. He happily pulled out divorce papers from his bag. My name is Alisa. I am a 37-year-old housewife. I live together with my husband Joe and our daughter Mary. My husband and I used to work together in the same company, but I left my job after we got married. I gave birth shortly after, and I've been spending my days taking care of the house and Mary. When Joe and I dated, he was a very kind person. But as soon as we got married, he became a completely different person and began to act like the king of the house. Clean up better. It's your responsibility to take care of Mary as her mother. Don't bother me. He would say things like that to me all the time. Of course I was unhappy, but I couldn't just take Mary and leave. My husband's salary was good, so I tried to convince myself that as long as he gave us money, I could handle this. I fooled myself like this and stayed married to him. A few times I tried to assert myself. I would suggest we go out on trips as a family or go out for dinner somewhere. I put effort so that our family could spend time together. But my husband would say,
I want to rest at home. That's a waste of money anyway.
And completely reject all my ideas. Joe didn't act that way only to me. He also put no effort into talking with Mary either. Apart from acting like he was king of the house, he seemed to stop caring about us. Joe never made any efforts with our daughter and I. Some time passed. I turned 43 years old, and our daughter started her third year of middle school. Just recently, Mary was a little girl wearing a brightly colored Barbie backpack. But now she was focused on our high school entrance exams. Since my husband was a lone wolf, Mary and I had more chances to talk to each other. Thanks to that, we became very close and shared almost everything with each other. She would talk to me about what was happening at school, as well as her thoughts about her future. There was a private high school she wanted to go to, so she came to me for advice. But the person who would be paying her tuition would be her dad. So I told her, you should also talk to your dad about this. Mary made a face that showed she really didn't want to. But when her dad came home from work, she told him her plans. Dad, it's about the high school I want to go.
Do what you want.
Huh? My husband didn't ask or care about what school Mary wanted to apply to. I was sick and tired of him. With a bored look on her face, Mary turned to me. It's okay if I don't talk to Dad about it again, right? She said. 1 year passed, and Mary started high school. She passed the entrance exam of the school she wanted, and she seemed to enjoy going to school every day. About that time, Joe, who had been like a ghost until then, suddenly began talking to me.
Hey, you. You are a housewife, so why are you so bad at housework?
Huh?
There's so much dust on all the shelves, and you always cook the same food all the time. I'm tired of your cooking.
I was shocked to suddenly have this said to me, so I was at a loss for what to say back to him. Joe began nitpicking everything I did and insulting me all the time. If I spoke back to him, his face would grow red and he would yell at me. I didn't want to deal with him, so I stopped listening to him. But one day, and she began angrily countered her dad. If you have so much to say about the way Mom does housework, why don't you just do it yourself? Mom makes breakfast, lunch, and dinner for us every day, right? She even makes lunch boxes for us to take to school and work. She's so busy that she doesn't have time to start learning new recipes, does she? Why don't you try cooking all this yourself for once? The dust on the shelves that you mentioned earlier. Mom is too short to reach that high. If it bothers you that much, as a man, you should clean it yourself. Mary spit out dishes like a freestyle rapper. Seeing how Mary suddenly said this to her dad made my heart skip a beat. Like a coward, Joe then turned and tried to attack me.
You've been spoiling her. So now this thing has grown up to not even respect her own father.
How could you call her a thing? That's what I hate about you as a person. Aren't you embarrassed to say something like that about your own daughter?
Shut up. If you have any complaints, let's divorce. Leave.
I had reached my limit. I couldn't be with this man any longer. Fine. Let's get divorced. My husband seemed like he was waiting for this moment. He happily pulled out divorce papers from his bag.
Here, sign them quickly.
You were really prepared for this, huh?
I've been wanting to divorce you for a while now. Yes, I can finally break up with you. I'm so happy.
Seeing my husband like that, I couldn't help but feel bad. Even if it was for a daughter's sake, how could I stay married to this guy for so long? You will have to pay me half of your property.
Yeah, I know.
Sign the papers already. I filled out my portion of the documents and handed them back to my husband.
In that case, pack your bags and leave.
I get it. Mary, let's go. When I called out to Mary, she said something that shocked me. I'm not leaving.
Huh?
I'm staying here. Let Dad take custody of me.
Mary? Why?
I couldn't understand. Didn't she hate her dad? Hadn't we talked a lot and become close friends? Did I just one-sidedly think that Mary and I were close?
Mary?
Why? Well, I'm used to living in this home. It's near my high school. And I definitely don't want to transfer to a new school. In that case, I'll rent an apartment near your school. No, it's okay. Like I said, I'm used to living here.
What? Mary? Why?
I never imagined that Mary wouldn't come with me. So I was deeply shaken. Joe seemed to feel the same way.
Why? Kids normally go with their mothers, right? Weren't you too close? Go with your mom.
Shut up. I'm the one who gets to decide, right? I've decided to live here with you.
No way.
Mom, I'll help you pack your bags.
Huh?
Mary put me into the bedroom. When we got to the room, Mary began to whisper into my ear. This is all part of my plan. Please, trust me. What? What was my daughter thinking? Though I was confused, I calmed myself down and decided to trust Mary. I left the house and went to my parents' house. A few days later, Mary came over to her grandparents' home and explained her plan to me in detail. I had to admit, it was a good plan. To think a high schooler could come up with something like this. Even though she was my daughter, it was a bit scary. Joe and I's divorce was complete, and I received a half of the property as promised. He got custody of Mary. But since I was a housewife and didn't make any money, I didn't have to pay child support. The first stage of Mary's plan was complete. The truth is, Mary happened to see her dad walking on the street together with some woman. When she told me, I hired a private investigator and collected proof that he had been having an affair. I was able to claim alimony from Joe and his lover thanks to that. The two of them paid me quite the sum. Joe didn't expect that I knew about his affair. He was really surprised. The reason Mary wanted her dad to take custody of her and to stay in that house is because she wanted to scare away her dad's lover. Mary was in high school, so she didn't need taking care of. And that lover was serious enough about Joe to make him break up with me. But Mary knew that if she was around, her dad's lover was bound to shy away. And just as Mary had planned, Joe's lover got angry at him that he hadn't kept his promise of chasing away his daughter, and she disappeared. Shortly after moving in my parents, I found a job. I'm a certified bookkeeper and have worked as an accountant for many years, so a small company hired me as their accountant. 2 months after my divorce, I had saved up money and started renting an apartment close to Mary's high school. I got a 2-bedroom so that Mary could stay over whenever she wants. She soon started coming over to visit and slept over almost every night. After sleeping over, she would go directly to school the next day. Because of that, my ex-husband Joe no longer had anyone to do the housework for him, and he had to live in his big home all on his own. The home soon became full of dust. I was the one who had always cooked until then, so he started eating very unhealthy. He ate instant noodles and fast food nearly every day. He didn't even know what days to take out the trash. He would miss the trash pickup days each time. So his home became full of food wrappers and the smells of random spoiled food. That was the second stage of my daughter's plan. She chased away his lover, and now he had no one to do housework for him. This whole plan was meant to make Joe realize how much I had supported him until now. It finally hit him. At 3 months after we divorced, Joe called me crying.
Save me. The house is a mess.
Oh, what happened?
There's no one to do the housework. I can't clean at all. I'm eating horrible food. And now even my health is suffering.
You're forcing Mary to live like that?
No. She's really rebellious and almost never comes home. I don't even know if she's going to school.
You have custody of her, so take care of her.
But I didn't take custody of her because I want it. I don't know what she's thinking.
I felt like laughing, but I did my best to hold myself back. It's hard to understand the feelings of a girl going through puberty. Anyway, do your best as a single father.
Hey, wait.
I hung up the phone. Hearing his voice talking so meekly, I felt relieved. Thanks to our daughter, Joe understands how important and difficult housework is. I have to admit, Mary really came up with a great plan. I will buy her anything she wants as a present. Afterwards, Joe paid a lot of money and hired a maid to clean his entire home. He called his lover and told her that Mary is never at home. So it seems that now his lover moved in with him. I was thinking it was about time to take Mary back. But this was also part of her plan. One day, after she finished school, Mary went to her dad's office reception desk. Dad's lover began living in our home, so I can't go back there anymore. I've come here so that he can give me money to pay rent. Mary said that directly to Joe's office receptionist. The receptionist was speechless. Joe rushed out to pull Mary away, but it was already too late. In no time, bad rumors spread around Joe's workplace. Joe hadn't told his colleagues that the reason for his divorce was his affair. So they all bashed him, and he became very self-conscious. He told me he couldn't handle taking care of Mary and asked me to take her himself. I agreed to take custody of Mary, and Joe began paying me child support. Mary and I had already been living together since long before I got custody of her, So our lives didn't change all that much. But the two of us were very happy about the success of Mary's plan. We cooked together, went out shopping together, and lived happily together. Mary had set her sights on a university, so I will do my best to continue to support her.
Do you not understand what I'm saying? You're really stupid. How long are you going to keep using my son's money? You parasite. Get out of my sight.
My mother-in-law said that and tried to chase me away. By now, that reasoning with her was useless, so I decided to follow her instruction and leave. My name is Sophie. I'm a 35-year-old office worker. I've been married to my husband Jimmy for 3 years now. We don't have kids yet, but since we both work full-time and make good money, we go on trips, eat at nice restaurants, and live a happy life together. I currently switched to working from home and do almost all of my job remotely. Because of that, I took on most of the housework and allowed Jimmy to focus on his job. Still, Jimmy helps me out a lot on the weekends. We live a very balanced and fair married life. I met my husband at a matchmaking party. His kind smile attracted me immediately. We began dating after the party, and 2 years later, got married. Even after we got married, Jimmy's kind smile continues to melt away all my worries. But even in our happy married life, we weren't without problems. Our biggest problem was my mother-in-law. My husband's family ran a restaurant chain. My deceased father-in-law opened their first shop 15 years ago. It grew in popularity since then, and now there are many locations all across our city. Thanks to that, when I first met my mother-in-law, she was dressed from head to toe in brand name clothes. I had a strong impression that she wasn't wearing the clothes because she actually liked them, but just because they were expensive. They didn't seem to suit her at all. For the lack of a better word, it felt like she was living a new money lifestyle. I met my mother-in-law right before Jimmy and I got married, and she seemed to look down on me.
Well, as long as my son's wife is good around the house and doesn't cause problems, just about anyone will do. But it still seems she wasn't very lucky. You're working now, but if you get fired in the future, please don't assume that we'll give you a job at the restaurant. I have a feeling you will be unlucky for business. The fact my mother-in-law said this, even though it was our first time meeting, was very shocking to me. Jimmy scolded her so she went quiet, but she never changed her opinion about me. I couldn't help but think she was a very rude person. I guess in order to lead a successful restaurant chain, you need to have a strong personality. At least, my husband was on my side. And I never considered working at the restaurant if I lost my job. So, even if she said that to me, I didn't really care. My husband apologized for his mother's rudeness many times and told me that it's okay if I only met her at formal family events like weddings and funerals. Jimmy's mother ran the restaurants with other relatives, so she didn't rely on Jimmy. In general, it seemed like Jimmy wasn't all too fond of his mother either. She was usually kind to her son, but if things didn't go well with the business, she would act like a completely different person. When it came to Jimmy's future as well, his father would give him advice here and there, but Jimmy's mother would only nag him. So, Jimmy didn't like being together with his mother, and when he started university, he began living on his own. Of course, he was grateful to his parents since thanks to the success of the restaurant, they had enough money to send him to university. Thanks to that, Jimmy is working a solid job for a decent company, and he said that he now wants to pay his parents back for their help.
But other than that, he found his mother annoying. So he didn't want to deal with her often. Since Jimmy said all that, after our wedding, I didn't meet my mother-in-law even once. I'm sure that one of the reasons why we hadn't met was also that Jimmy and I didn't have kids yet. Thanks to that, Jimmy and I lived a happy married life for a while. But recently, there have been issues at my mother-in-law's restaurant. The root of the problem is my mother-in-law's bad attitude. Until recently, even if people didn't like the owner of the restaurant, they would still eat there if the food was good. But now, with the popularity of social media, reviews have become very important to running a business. Her bad attitude when dealing with customers has become a main topic in all the bad reviews of her restaurant online. Her personality was bad. The way she cleaned up was sloppy. She spilled soup on people. The restaurant was too busy. When they felt her bitter mood, they lost their appetite. Those sorts of bad comments like that were all over online. The restaurant was really becoming a mess. The other restaurant and the chain were also going downhill. The taste of the food was now even worse than ready-made meals. Reviews like that kept coming in, and in no time, people stopped visiting the restaurant. But my mother-in-law would just blame it on young people these days and didn't change her management method. The other stores started falling apart, and eventually, the main branch was at the brink of bankruptcy as well. My mother-in-law had lost all hope. Though it was unusual for her, my mother-in-law suddenly appeared at our house.
Jimmy, help me. I'll be on the street if this continues. If you keep going like this, the business won't last. I told you before, didn't I? You can't be so arrogant. You know what they say? The customer is always right. If you treat customers so poorly, they'll go against you. But you didn't listen to me back then, did you? To tell you the truth, you brought this upon yourself. You should take this chance to reflect on yourself. I'm sorry, but even if you ask me for help, there's nothing I can do.
Hearing those words from my husband, my mother-in-law fell to her knees and cried. To think my kind husband would say something that severe. But he said that to his mother because he cared about her. He was being so strict because he loved her. Seeing Jimmy like that, I once again thought to myself how wonderful he is. My mother-in-law gave up and went home. But a month later, she showed up at her home again. At this point, she looked like a mess and wasn't wearing any brand name clothes or accessories.
Please, I sold all my brand name goods, but I still can't pay off my debts. I sold a car too, and there are still loans to pay. Please, save me. You are the only person I can turn to.
My mother-in-law got on her hands and knees and begged Jimmy. Jimmy stood with his arm crossed, unsure what he should do. I didn't like my mother-in-law at all, but seeing her like this, I felt like I wanted to help her. Jimmy, why don't you send your mother some money every month?
Huh?
My husband was surprised to hear me say that. My mother-in-law was also surprised and lifted her head to look at me.
Sophie, is that okay with you?
Yeah, it is. And didn't you say you wanted to pay your parents back for paying for your university tuition?
Jimmy? Really?
Whoa, yeah. I did say that.
Jimmy, please. I will work hard to make enough money to pay off my loans. So please, just help me out with my living expenses.
My mother-in-law got down on her hands and knees again. Eventually, my husband agreed to support his mother. he would send her $750 a month, and I would transfer him $1,100 to add to that. Jimmy told me I didn't have to send her that much, but I wanted my mother-in-law to be able to pay back her debts and return to her normal life as soon as possible. I thought that after experiencing this, my mother-in-law would fix her arrogant attitude. Anyway, I had extra income, apart from what I was earning from my full-time job. That was from real estate. Actually, I've been studying stocks and investments for a while now and had a solid portfolio. With that money, I bought an apartment which I've been renting out. As I made more money from stocks, I bought another apartment which I also began renting out. Overall, I made nearly $750,000 a year. So, I didn't have to worry about money. Of course, I kept this a secret from my mother-in-law. So, in order to support her, I sent Jimmy money to send to her. My mother-in-law was grateful and thanked us a lot.
Jimmy, thank you so much. Thanks to you, my life has become stable again.
Jimmy also seemed happy to hear that. We hoped that my mother-in-law would find herself a job and gradually pay back her debts. But 1 month passed and she wasn't able to find herself a new job. And then, an even bigger problem arose. My mother-in-law began to regularly visit our house during the week.
I can barely afford food. Sophie, can you make me something to eat?
My mother-in-law would come over in the afternoon and ask me to make her lunch. At first, she would go home after finishing eating. But recently, she's been hanging around on the couch after. And even sometimes she goes as far as to ask me for dessert after lunch. I'm also working, and it's tough on me if you stay over for this long. Her presence began affecting my work, so I had to say something. My mother-in-law laughed.
What work? You're always at home, aren't you? If you want to lie, at least come up with something more convincing.
She replied to me. Maybe she's been working in the restaurant business so long that she doesn't know about remote work. I explained everything to her in detail. But she doesn't understand technology well, so she didn't get what I was telling her. No matter how busy I told her I was, she wouldn't listen to me, and she'd just keep asking me for more.
Sophie, there's no more tea. Go and buy some.
You don't have any snacks. Crackers would be great. If you really are a useless wife.
You are a housewife, but you can't even do this much.
My mother-in-law would say things like that and blame me. She said she was going to work to pay off her debt, that she just couldn't find a job. But instead, she would spend all day at her house and only quickly leave right before Jimmy comes home. I'm sure that she feels guilty to Jimmy, since he's the one who sends her money. Or maybe he just doesn't want him to ask her whether she's found a job yet. But I had reached the limits of my patience. I was the one giving her most of the money every month. So why did she have to say that to me? I stood in front of my mother-in-law. Please, leave.
What?
My mother-in-law was momentarily shaken. She didn't seem to expect that I would say that to her. But her face quickly went red and she began to yell.
How could you say that to your own husband's mother? You're just a housewife who relies on Jimmy's salary.
How many times do I have to tell you? I'm not a housewife.
Enough with those delusions.
My mother-in-law screamed. She then made a face as if she had realized something.
That's it. I just have to kick you out. Jimmy sends me such little money every month because you are here.
That $1,850 you receive every month? both of us send you that money together. What do you mean it's little? Do you really think that's enough for me? It's too little. I was at a loss for words. I had to keep my calm. It seemed that even though she didn't have money, she hadn't stopped living a luxurious lifestyle. I was sick and tired of her. My mother-in-law looked at me coldly. Hey, how long do you plan on spacing out? Pack your bags. Don't you understand what I'm saying? You're really stupid. How long will you keep using my son's money? You parasite. Get out of my sight. My mother-in-law said that and tried to chase me away. But now I had realized that reasoning with her was useless, so I decided to follow her instruction and leave. Fine. I will pack my bags and leave. My mother-in-law's face looked victorious. My life is finally secure. I'm sure if I was living alone with Jimmy in the first place, this wouldn't have happened. I left my mother-in-law behind and began packing a suitcase. In that case, I will go away as quickly as possible. My mother-in-law looked satisfied and went home. That night, I explained everything to Jimmy. He was overwhelmed with anger. Sophie, I'm so sorry. It's okay. Thanks to this, we understood that your mother really hasn't changed. Isn't it good that we realized that we shouldn't try anymore? Jimmy and I both packed our things and left the house. 2 weeks later, my mother-in-law called. What happened? Have you left the house? I wanted to call you about the money Jimmy sends me every month, but I was busy, and I haven't been able to until now. I've already left the house, so don't worry. You won't have to see me ever again. My mother-in-law sounded very happy to hear that. My son finally managed to get rid of you. The money Jimmy sends me will increase, and I will live a good life. She spoke happily. I let out a sigh and retorted. You've said so many mean things to me. Calling me a parasite. You couldn't be more wrong. You should be more careful. My mother-in-law yelled back. You're acting like this again. What can I even do with you? Well, you're not my son's wife anymore, at least. I hope that you live a poor and lonely life from now on. How wrong she could be. But it's fine. Let her think that way. Shortly after, I ended the call. 1 week later, she called me again. What is it this time? My mother-in-law began panicking as she questioned me. What's going on? I went to Jimmy's apartment and someone else was living there. You two broke up. But do you know what happened? Where is he? She asked me. My husband was next to me and overheard his mother, so I handed him the phone. I'd been with Sophie this whole time. Jimmy, why are you with her? And why did you stop sending me money? Well, you tried to insult and kick Sophie out of our house, right? Even if you are my mom. I can't forgive you for hurting my precious wife. Sophie tried to explain to you about her job many times, but you never listened. Sophie was actually the one who sent you most of that money. It seems you didn't realize. Huh? Are you serious? Sophie wanted you to be able to pay off your debts quickly, so she would give you $1,100 a month. But you would call her useless and make fun of her. I won't send money to someone like you. Sorry, but I'm cutting off my ties with you. Pay your debts yourself. I didn't know Sophie made that much money. I'll apologize. So, please, forgive me. And then send me money again. It's too late. Give up. Jimmy said that and hung up the phone. I then blocked my mother-in-law's number. She never tried to get in touch with us again.
Jimmy heard from his relatives later that though his mother sold her house, she still wasn't able to pay off her debts. She's now living in a run-down apartment and working part-time. She's living a very meager life while trying to pay off her debts. She tried asking her relatives for help, but she had always acted arrogantly with them as well, so no one agreed to help her. So now she is completely alone and living a menial life. She got what she deserved. Jimmy and I are still both working our full-time jobs and are living the fun lives we have been until now. Our time together is really precious. 1 year later, I got pregnant. I never expected I would have a child now, but I consider it a gift from heaven. I'm grateful that I can raise a child with the husband I love.